If you were to run your finger down your chin, down your neck, there will be a bump. Guys, this is your Adam's apple. Yours is super easy to find. Girls, not so much. But if you'll run your finger down your chin, down the middle of your neck, you'll feel a little bump. That's your larynx. The larynx is the house for the vocal cords. And inside there, your vocal cords live. Now, your vocal cords are not technically cords, but they're these super thin, super slimy, tiny little tissues that open and close to make sound. If you look at your nail bed, the thumbnail bed in particular, that is the length on average of your vocal cords. I know, right? They're so tiny. And when you consider that, it's absolutely amazing the sound that comes out of them, right? Inside the larynx, we have the vocal cords. The vocal cords are not muscle, they're tissue. So what makes them open and close? Muscle. Surrounding your vocal cords are groups of muscles. They all work together. They kind of trade off like a relay race to decide what muscle needs to engage here and there to close the cords at a certain level. It's no different than the muscles in other parts of your body that kind of work together to make everything move. If you've ever gone to an ENT, an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and they say something like, you have very robust cords, then that means that the tissues that are the vocal cords are a little bit more on the sturdy side compared to other people. If you have a powerful voice, it doesn't necessarily mean your cords are any different. That usually means that the muscle behind the cords that opens and closes is a little bit more buff. Now, the vocal cords and the larynx are in the windpipe. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. One, so you don't choke and die, and because it takes air to make sound. So it's in the right place. At the top of the windpipe is a tiny little flap called the epiglottis. This is the gateway between the food pipe and the windpipe. And it's important because we can't have them both open at once. It would be really, really bad. Below the vocal cords, we have the lungs, of course. The diaphragm is a little pancake underneath the lungs, kind of like an accordion. It can fill up, hold air, and then slowly compress it, whereas our lungs tend to take in air and expel it pretty quickly. All that air from your diaphragm and your lungs comes up your windpipe, through your vocal cords, out your mouth, ta-da, sound. Well, that's not quite that easy. Now, when air passes through the vocal cords and makes sound, the sound then travels to a couple places in our chest and or head. That's why sometimes you'll hear the terms chest voice or head voice. Usually they're referring to the notes that resonate in those chambers. All that to say, some lower notes you feel in your chest a little bit, some higher notes you feel up in your head a little bit, and that's pretty much what they mean. You have the air from the lungs and the diaphragm that comes up the windpipe through the vocal cords, out the open epiglottis, resonating in your chest and or head, and right out your mouth, making beautiful music. This is the anatomy of your voice. So now you know how sound is made, right? Well, not so fast. You know where the sound is made. You know it's made in the windpipe where the vocal cords are and how it starts from air and then gets above the vocal cords and bounces around a few places before exiting out your mouth. But that doesn't really explain the process of the sound being made itself. Sound is not made by air support, and sound is not made by cord strength. Sound is made by the resistance of the cords against the air. They're 50-50. Think of a big old barn on the prairie in a windstorm. You get a big set of giant wooden barn doors, and they're closed, and a big windstorm comes along, and you hear woo through the doors. But if those doors were to be open too much, you would only hear. Well, that's very much true for your vocal cords. If your cords are your doors, and the windstorm is the air coming up from your lungs and your diaphragm, well, then it's the resistance of the cords, or your barn doors, that determines the quality and the power of your sound. Stronger resistance, more sound. More air? Not necessarily. More air just gives you. But if you take the same amount of air and close the barn doors, ooh, a little bit more resistance, ooh, same amount of air, a little bit more resistance. And again, that's not the cords doing the work. The cords are closing, but they're closing because the muscle behind them is shutting the door. So let's do a little barn door exercise. Right now you're going to be a windstorm with a weak and wimpy and open barn door. It's almost ghost-like. Ooh. Do that and see what it feels like. Now I want you to give me a little bit more of an ooh, and give me ooh. Now how does that feel different from the first? Do the first one again. Ooh. The second one? Ooh. Which one felt like it needed more air? Was it the first one or the second one? The second one actually needs less air support because the cords are closed, resisting the air so that it can make more sound out of what it has. Have you ever gone out on a summer day and turned on the hose and decided to put your thumb over the end of it? What happens? It goes from a wimpy stream of water to a powerful spray. That's the exact same thing happens when we have good cord closure and good muscle support against any amount of air, small or large. The more resistance, the more it makes out of the air that it has. And that's why muscle coordination to close those doors and to make them strong is so important. So now you know how sound is made. So how do you get all the notes you want?